Right now, we're going to welcome our next live guest. We've got Ben Gordon, CEO over at Cambridge Capital, with us, continuing the conversation about the needs of the people in Ukraine and what the transportation industry can do to help. Ben, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.
It's great to have you. Last week, you wrote kind of an open letter to the transportation industry saying we need to step up and be the driving force to send humanitarian aid and help to the people of Ukraine and the people impacted by the crisis overall. Can you talk us through a little bit about what you said in your open letter and kind of who you called out to help for?
Yeah. So let me start from the basic premise. On February 24th, I went, as I think we all did, from living in one world to living in another world. I've spent the last 20 plus years of my career building companies in logistics and supply chain, and now investing in them here at Cambridge Capital. But on February 24th, everything changed, because on that day, Russia invaded its peaceful neighbor, Ukraine, and started launching bombings and attacks on civilians, hospitals, apartment buildings, and cultural centers, and really an attempt to level the country. And the people of Ukraine are being pummeled. And the 44 million Ukrainian civilians, more than 3 million of them have already fled and been made refugees. My opinion is that all of us in supply chain are in a position to do something about it. And so I wanted to start and do what I could, starting with humanitarian relief to help the poor people in need in Ukraine and refugees. And fundamentally, it's about three things. One is it's about getting people out, people that are being attacked, shelled, those 3 million Ukrainians, mainly women and children, who've been able to leave. We've got to do more to help them get out. And we can do that with buses, transportation, and other resources. Two is bringing food and medicine in, both to the people of Ukraine, as well as to the refugees that are now resettling in places like Poland, Romania, and Hungary. And that's a food, medicine, and supplies initiative. And then three is we've got a plan for what happens after this crisis, because who knows how long this Putin war against Ukraine lasts. But even if it ended today, which it won't, we will have a long humanitarian crisis helping millions of people put their lives back together and helping a country resuscitate. And so in the long run, there's going to be a massive redevelopment. But in the short run, it's people out, food, medicine, and supplies in, and then preparing for what comes next. So what can we do about it in supply chain? Well, I think number one, there are groups on the ground like Project Dynamo, which is evacuating people, and we can help them and support them and bring in more resources, buses and drivers. Number two, there's food, medicine, and supplies needed. We can donate to groups that will bring in those supplies. We can also have major supply chain companies give their resources to the humanitarian effort. That means companies with trucking, aviation, and warehousing capacity in Poland, Hungary, Romania, as well as the transportation into those countries in order to meet the needs. And then third is money. We can give money to help people on the ground. And so I am organizing the Ukraine Logistics Coalition in partnership with the CEOs of other major companies in supply chain in order to help make that a reality.
And Ben, I think you hit on a really important topic, because too often we see that news cycles move too quickly with certain stories that are really impactful and involving tons of people. This conflict, this war right now, doesn't just end once the news stops reporting about it, but there's going to be an ongoing recovery process. Can you talk to what that might look like afterwards, and what some of those refugees might be facing even after all this does come to an end?
Yes. Unfortunately, the best analogy that I can think of is what happened after World War II. And what happened after World War II was there were DP camps, displaced persons camps, that were set up in places, not in Germany, but in and around other places in Europe. I believe Vienna had one, Italy had one, there were a couple of others. And basically, what does that entail? It entails setting up refugee camps, giving people a safe haven, a place to go, bringing them food, medicine, and supplies, housing, clothing, et cetera, helping them rebuild their lives, helping them get jobs, potentially helping them relocate to other places. I would expect Poland will become a large relocation site as it is today. But today there are fewer than 1 million Ukrainians that have fled to Poland. That number could end up being 10 times that. We'll see. And so there's a supply chain role in facilitating that and supporting that. So one practical thing that we can do and that we will do is work with supply chain companies. For example, I was in Atlanta 2 days ago. I believe Americold will become a partner and will work with us, and we'll set up cold chain warehouses in Poland into which you can ship food, medicine, and other temperature-controlled shipments. And in turn, whether that ends up in these camps or elsewhere, that will become a long-term need. Secondly, there will be the replenishment processes for food getting back to those warehouses and then to those camps. And that involves the food, the trucking, the air, et cetera. And then third will be, of course, helping those people get back on their feet, helping them get jobs, helping them restart their lives. So I think that's something that we could potentially see, unfortunately, for many years. And under a best case scenario where Putin withdraws from his war against Ukraine, it would still be a multi-year process to rebuild the country before people could really go back in and restart. So either way, I think this idea of refugee camps and supply chains to support and help these Ukrainian victims in places like Poland, Hungary, and Romania will be a huge problem, but a huge opportunity for those of us in supply chain to step up.
So far, we've spoken to two separate groups who are creating outlets or creating places to send humanitarian aid for. We talked to Hope for Ukrainian Heroes, and we talked to another group, both based out of the Midwest, who are organizing donations, monetary donations, and sending them directly to groups like UNICEF and the Red Cross and help the children of Ukraine. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy of kind of just casting a wide net when it comes to humanitarian aid and relief? Do you think that there needs to be a centralized point of, I guess, a point of organization for this, or is it kind of just the more groups that are helping, the better?
So, look, I think there's no doubt that there are a lot of people that want to help, can help, and should help, and whether that's International Red Cross, International Rescue Committee, Samaritan's Purse. I mean, there are dozens of organizations that are doing things. Here's the problem. So much of this is disorganized, chaotic, and in some cases redundant. Just to give you an example, over the last 2 weeks, I know from the time that I've spent working with organizations that lots of people want to ship goods into Ukraine to help the people. But there is a finite number of planes, finite capacity. So in some cases, you actually have humanitarian organizations bidding up price on scarce capacity for, on a lot of airlines, for example, to fly things over. And so this really calls out for a more organized effort as opposed to just letting everything kind of unfold in chaotic fashion. And so what I would like to do is work with other leaders in supply chain and create this logistics humanitarian coalition that facilitates that. So what can we do? Well, one, if we get all the major transportation companies, whether it's the airlines, United, Delta, others, the freight forwarders, and Seco has stepped up and doing great work. Flexport stepped up. There are others as well. Trucking companies on the U.S. side, but most importantly on the European side, so that you can get ground transport into Ukraine or those adjacent countries, and warehousing companies that can store food in staging areas. If that could be coordinated and shared, I think we'll reach more people and save more lives. And so one model for that is COVID-19. There was a COVID-19 coalition. Another model, actually the model that I think would be outstanding, is Operation Warp Speed. So in Operation Warp Speed, you had a series of drug manufacturers, Moderna, Pfizer, and others. You had resources, in that case spearheaded by the government, the administration. 3, you had NGOs, and you really had a collaborative effort where everybody had a common goal and knew their role and was able to run hard after that priority. I would love for us to be able to have an Operation Warp Speed that creates that same collaboration.
And Ben, if folks want to reach out and really get a part of this, how can they reach you or really kind of be a part of this whole movement?
So a couple things. They can email me directly, ben@cambridgecapital.com. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Benjamin Gordon, Cambridge Capital. Ben Gordon 18 is the LinkedIn handle. Twitter, Benjamin H. Gordon or otherwise. But they can reach out to me, and if you, speaking to the audience directly, if you're a part of a transportation logistics company, see if your company can contribute resources to be a part of this. I think, number one, that's invaluable. Number two, if you're part of an NGO and you want to be able to donate resources, great. The same thing, we'd like to be able to facilitate that communication collaboration. Number three, if you want to give money, which of course there's a desperate need for funds on the ground, absolutely do that as well. And then lastly, this is about the people of Ukraine and their needs. There are multiple organizations, and I mentioned a few of them earlier in this call. I want to highlight a couple of others in particular. In terms of evacuating people, there's a group called Project Dynamo, and you can go to projectdynamo.org. And they're operating buses, getting people out of Kiev and other major cities and trying to get them into safer places, typically out of the country, whether it's Romania, Hungary, or Poland. And you can support Project Dynamo. They're doing amazing work. There's another organization called the JDC, the Joint Distribution Committee. I'm on the board of the JDC and have been involved with JDC for a long time. For more than 20 years, I've been involved. They have people on the ground in Ukraine, and they've been there and in Russia and the surrounding area for over a century. They're an organization that dates back to 1914, tremendous humanitarian work that they do. While many people are evacuating, they're going into harm's way and in cities under siege like Mariupol, bringing in food, medicine, and resources to help the old, the sick, the vulnerable, and those that can't help themselves. And so multiple great organizations, certainly those are terrific ones. But feel free to reach out to me directly. I want to do everything that I can to help. And I appreciate that you and FreightWaves and so many others are looking to step up as well.
Absolutely, Ben. Thank you for the work that you're doing. If you want to get connected with Ben, just shoot him an email, ben@cambridgecapital.com. We're going to take a